This book is a reflection on selflessness. That is, on what it is to be a person, but not to be a self. My initial focus will be metaphysical, an exploration of what kinds of things we are and of what kind of things we are not. But the real point of this exploration will emerge towards the end of the book, when we turn to the ethical import of the non-existence of the self, and what it means for our understanding of our place in the world. I will be arguing explicitly for a position that many may think flies in the face of common sense. In other words, that we are not selves, nor do we have selves. I will not argue that we do not exist. That would be madness. But I will argue that we exist not as selves, but as persons. I hope that my argument, to the extent that it is convincing, also persuades you that too often what masquerades as common sense is in fact nonsense. It follows from this that any philosophical program that takes our common sense intuitions for granted, and then takes as its task to defend them by elucidating them, or by making them more precise, may simply ramify confusion instead of generating clarity. Some may react to this discussion by thinking that I am drawing a purely verbal distinction that reflects no real philosophical difference, and so think that I am devoting too much ink to making a trivial lexical point, that I am merely arguing for the substitution of one of a pair of synonyms for the other. Others might think that in arguing against the view that we are or have selves, I am arguing against a straw man, a position that nobody in fact believes. I hope to convince you that neither is the case, that these terms have very different meanings, that many people, whether professional philosophers or not, take themselves to be selves and not persons in the relevant sense, and that they are wrong to do so. That is, the distinction to which I will draw your attention is a real one, and the position against which I am arguing is no straw man. The ideas that I will develop are inspired by my long engagement with two philosophers, one Indian and one Scottish. Chandrakirti, circa 600 to 650 CE, and David Hume, 1711 to 1776 CE. Chandrakirti was a Buddhist scholar and a partisan of the middle way school of Mahayana Buddhist philosophy. He was distinctive in his defense both of the robust reality of the world we inhabit and of the view that despite, or more accurately, because of, the fact that that is real, our own existence and that of the objects and institutions that surround us is merely conventional, dependent upon the way we think and the way we talk. He argued that, although we might take ourselves to be selves that exist independent of and prior to these conventions, this is an illusion. Instead, he argued, these practices constitute us as persons. All of this might sound a bit incoherent and even mystical, but as we continue our investigation, its plausibility, and I hope its correctness, will emerge. Just over 1,000 years after Chandrakirti's death, David Hume in Scotland defended strikingly similar views. He, like Chandrakirti, argued that we must take the reality of the world around us for granted. He also argued that we are systematically confused if we take our own existence and that of the world around us to be prior to and independent of our conventions, our ways of acting, talking, and thinking. Hume also argued that although we have a persistent illusion of being selves, we are instead constituted as persons in the context of our interactions with one another and of the practices that enable those interactions. Although many have thought of Hume's position as interesting only as a straw man to attack, I again hope that as we proceed, its plausibility and indeed its correctness will emerge. The fact that although Chandrakirti was a Buddhist monk and Hume was a persistent critic of religion in a Christian country, they developed strikingly similar accounts of personhood as well as strikingly similar critiques of the idea of the self is probably no accident.